So yesterday we covered on the basic instruction on walking and sitting. So hopefully that you have tried it today. And we will continue with the talk on this vipassana. Now, in order for us to develop vipassana, and vipassana, finally, the development is inside the mind, inside the heart. The technique, like what you do for the walking, sitting, is to develop the various qualities, various wholesome qualities of the mind, and then also to reduce unwholesome qualities of the mind. Now, the first thing in this vipassana to develop, it is not this concentration, wisdom, or any other factors. The only thing that for now the yogis has to be aware of and to be alert to develop, or consciously you should develop, is to develop this mindfulness, is to develop this sati. Because if there is no sati, if there's no mindfulness, then this whole vipassana will not develop in the right manner, or it develop in the wrong way. But then the yogi may think that he is still doing it in the right way. So all forms of vipassana, or all forms of Buddhist meditation, the right Buddhist meditation, one has to develop that mindfulness, that quality of mindfulness. In the Pali word, we use the word sati, S-A-T-I. But in English, usually I'll just use the term mindfulness. Sometimes there are authors use awareness, bare attention, and they are right in a certain way. But normally I don't use this awareness too much, because right now it seems the awareness for the word sati becomes quite popular. And that can actually, I feel that it can mix up with our everyday awareness, which we do not have much mindfulness during that time. So we have to know, or we have to be aware that, or we have to be alert that whenever the mindfulness arises, and also we have to be alert that when there's no mindfulness also in the mind. And the thing is that with this mindfulness, it feels that it's quite common. But this is the basis for all vipassana development, or all samatha development also, and not just only vipassana. So we must, as a yogi, we must able to feel that mindfulness. You must know what to do to arouse the mindfulness. That is the first thing. Second thing, when it's there, you must know that it is that quality of mindfulness inside the mind. And it's not other qualities. Because the mindfulness, if you develop them wrongly, then mindfulness does not come up. It comes up with concentration, over-concentration. And concentration, when it comes to vipassana meditation, not that this is not important, but it has to come with mindfulness. So if you cannot differentiate these things inside the mind, then most of the time, if the yogis are not guided, they will go into concentration rather than mindfulness. And that is where sometimes yogis They practice meditation again and again and again and again, and over the years, no progress. Nothing much. Yes, they are calm, they are peaceful, and then that's about it, There's no no insight, nothing what. You do not know what is going on inside the mind and body. But the quality of mindfulness, when it comes in, it begins to be alert on this phenomena inside the mind and body. And that is something that we have to build it up while we are in this retreat and also in the future retreats. Because as the mindfulness grows, the mind becomes sharper, concentration will come in, wisdom comes in, the energy comes in, interest comes in, everything comes in. So a lot of things will start coming in when there's mindfulness coming in. So yesterday I mentioned a little bit here and there about mindfulness. As I said that while you're doing this walking meditation, lifting, pushing, dropping, or right step, left step, your job right now is to ignore all your thoughts, all your thinking, all your planning, all your memories, and to keep the mind in the present. Stay with the movement. Stay with the movement, follow the movements, follow the rising and falling, follow the sensation, follow the pain. Because all those things, all those objects, they are happening in the present moment. So, firstly, mindfulness has to be in the present. Okay? So the first quality is that you have to acknowledge it, to be aware of it, that this mindfulness is to be here and now. If the mind goes into thinking, goes into planning, that means there's no mindfulness. No matter how good, how wonderful your thinking is, how creative the thinking, or how much of problem solving inside the thoughts. So all these thoughts, whenever you go inside there while you're meditating, then there's not mindfulness anymore. And you go into the past memories or the future planning or the current thinking, all these thoughts, when you're inside there, there's no mindfulness at all. You will see that for yourself. I mean, perhaps you have seen it today. When your mind goes into thinking, planning, you do not know what is going on with the movement. You do not know what is going on with the rising and falling. So make sure the mind is in the present. That is one thing. And you have to keep on checking again and again. Am I here and now? Or am I dreaming just now? Or am I planning just now? So, training is to bring the mind back to the present. Now, here, the next thing is not all forms of presentness is mindfulness. Not all forms of presentness is mindfulness. For example, when you are at home, again, when you do your things and you just open a door, you close a door, you eat and so on. Somewhat you are aware of what you are doing, but you are not mindful. You're not mindful. You're aware. You just, that awareness keeps you living day after day. It keeps moving. It keeps the life continuous from one day after to another day or one moment to another moment. But there's not mindfulness there, although mind is a somewhat present. What we want is not the everyday type of awareness, but what we want is that heightened awareness. And a kind of mind is that you heighten it up and you're more alert of what is going on in the present. For example, at home, once in a while mindfulness do come in. For example, we need to be more careful in doing something, handling perhaps sharp objects, handling maybe hot water, maybe the kettle, and you are got to be more alert. And then there's some mindfulness there. There's some degree of mindfulness, but it's not a prolonged mindfulness, prolonged in the sense of the time. It's quite for that activity only. After that, we just carry on with our whatever that we are doing. Nowadays, this mindfulness again is being diluted down even further. It's like sometimes nowadays they have this form of practice. I mean, they go for jogging in the park, walks in the park, Then they say that they are developing a lot of mindfulness there. Because in a way, if you pay attention, if you are aware of your walking and so on, although it's quite fast, they say nowadays this is a form of a vipassana practice. Don't have to come to a retreat. You go to a park and you walk for a few rounds, you'll be alert and so on. Then now this thing is getting popular. And sometimes some people label it as a vipassana practice. Now this is not a vipassana practice, neither this is also mindfulness in that sense. Although there may be a little bit here and there, but that is not enough for vipassana development. Vipassana development, we need the mind to be heightened up for a prolonged period of time. Not just only the mindfulness is there, 1 minute later it's gone, 5 minutes later it come back for 30 seconds, then 2 minutes is gone, then it come back and gone again. No. If we're going to do it in this way, then the progress is not going to go any more further, or very slow. So it needs to have a continuous mindfulness. And you have, in other words, it needs to have a continuous alertness, a heightened awareness. For example, when you're walking, for example, like today, when you're doing the third phase walking, you label it as lifting, pushing, dropping. And let's say this time your mind is fully there, your heart is fully there. Thoughts are not here, you clear it away, then you pay attention to it. So while you are doing it during this time, you see that after a while, you see the mind becomes heightened up. And that is where mindfulness coming in. A strong, at least it is continuous for maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And then this is what we want in the beginning part of the practice. During the sitting meditation, this mindfulness not so easy yet. Not for now yet, because per hour of sitting, let's say like today, within 1 hour, perhaps some of you like 45 minutes you are drowsy there. Maybe 5 minutes you're alert, or 10 minutes you're alert, then you're drowsy, then alert again for 1 minute, then drop into drowsiness again, then alert again. Then maybe about 40-45 minutes the mind is not clear, or the mind goes into thinking, planning. Not much of what you can notice in the rising and falling. But in the walking, it's better. Walking, you can feel the sensation clearer, more noticeable. That is where mindfulness starts to come in. So you got to build up that mindfulness. So during this time when you're walking, the mind is present. The mind also is heightenedly aware of what is happening in the lifting, pushing, dropping. That is how we bring the mindfulness in. Yeah? It sounds simple. Yes, it is simple, but when you do it, starting is simple, but to prolong it, that is difficult. Yeah? A lot of times when we teach, sometimes it's not in a retreat, sometimes it's like a one day or one session thing, yes, when you tell yogis to be mindful, to be aware, yes, they can do that. But to tell them to aware for a longer period of time, that is where you cannot do it like one day meditation or one session meditation. It needs a retreat. It needs 5 days, 6 days, 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks type of retreat in order for the mindfulness to get it prolonged. So make sure that your mind is here, being in the present. Now, while we are here doing this walking and sitting, we also have to extend the exercise of this arousing of this mindfulness to our other activities also. Yeah? Now here, walking from the hall to the restroom, I mean, it's quite far away, to and fro. Yeah? Now, here you extend it as part of your walking meditation, as part of your one-phase walking meditation. Right step, left step, right step, left step. And walk to the restroom, or during breakfast or lunch, or going back to your room, or coming from your room, you come back to the hall. And then you just do it at right step, left step, right step, left step, right step, left step. Yeah? Instead of looking and trying to rush, your meditation already started. Even when you're not in the hall. So try to do that. Because today I see some of you they are not mindful at all. You're mindful in the hall, yes, perhaps, you try to this one. But you forget to be mindful when you're out there. Yeah. So you have to be mindful whenever you like opening a door or closing a door. You have to do it with more carefulness. So sometimes what we do is that to help for us to remember to be mindful, then we use the labeling. Yeah. For example, we want to open the door, then we say pushing, 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 or twisting or turning the doorknob or whatsoever, and pushing it, going in. Then we do it one thing at a time. Don't have to rush. Slowly open, slowly close. Or even like you are in the dining hall. Don't rush. Come in, take your time to come in, Even sometimes when I'm sitting down, you're not in that. Don't rush. Take your time, slowly, right step, left step, right step, left step. The food will still be there, don't worry. Just right step, left step. Yeah. Then if those who come in a bit earlier, then you offer the food on my table, like what you do today. And then if you do, that is not a compulsory thing, for you to offer. But for those who are there, then okay for you to offer the table. So come inside, and then you open the door, you close the door, you come inside, you take your plates, you arrange your bowls and everything. You do it mindfully. You do it with a sense of like you're conscious of what you're doing. You're aware of what you're doing. You're alert of what you're doing. So take your time. Even that you're scooping the food on the buffet line, take your time, scoop. Just take what you need, and then after you sit down. And then here when you sit down also, You got to sit down gently. Not just pull the stool out and then pump. Because I already noticed half of you are doing like that. Then it's not the way of a yogi. A way of a yogi is to slowly we pull the chair out and slowly we drop the body. We slowly move the body down onto the chair, onto the stool, and then we sit there. And even when we eat, also the same thing. If we keep the mind in the present, use the fork or use the spoon, and slowly we take one thing at a time. Then you chewing, biting, swallowing until you don't feel the sensation. Then after that you scoop again. Then to slowly bring it in. Then keep the hands, don't let the hands move. Only let the chewing process. Chewing. That is how a yogi eats. One thing at a time. Not like our habit is out there when we have to rush. While we are eating, the hands are already searching for which scoop, and it's already right in front of you while we are chewing, and then we swallow it very fast, and then here we force it down to the not this way. Take your time. Take your time. It takes all these exercises. It's actually no different from what you do out there. It's only what we need you over here is to slow down and also be more mindful of what you are doing. Be alert of what you are doing. Just chewing, then swallowing, then you move your hands again, take a breath. And you do it for 20, 30 times of this way, and you find that the mindfulness comes in quite powerful, quite deep actually. Just by doing it the same thing again and again. So don't underestimate it. Perhaps you may not see the power of that mindfulness yet, but every moment you accumulate, every moment you make the effort to be mindful, to be alert. Even the small little things like even you comb your hair, you change your clothes, you're in the restroom, showering, washing your face, brushing your teeth. All these things that we take for granted at home. When we are here in the retreat, we transform all these actions into way of mindfulness, to arouse that mindfulness using all these actions. So don't underestimate all these actions. So this is how we bring the mind into the present, right here in the present, and not just only in the present, we are heightenedly aware of what is going on. Now, another quality of this mindfulness sometimes is described, if you read the books or the Dharma books on mindfulness, sometimes it may be described as is putting a state down as non-superficial. Non-superficial. The superficial here is like everyday life. Everyday life when you're out there, when you're not that mindful, you're just aware, you're just living from moment to moment, day after day, like that way. And that is the way superficial. And then when you're more alert, that is somewhat there's mindfulness is there. More careful, more thorough, more precise of what you are doing, then mindfulness is somewhat there. Now, so too, the same thing while we are here, in regards to our meditation objects. In regards to the meditation objects, sometimes yogis treat the treat the objects in a quite superficial manner. For example, they sit down, they do the rising, falling, or some of you are doing in-breath, out-breath. And then you sit there, you just feel in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, or rising, falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. And that's about it. Nothing more. Nothing more. At least, I mean, it's still good in the sense that, good in a way that you can still follow the object, which is in a way good on its own, but it's not good enough for vipassana. Yeah? Vipassana needs a little bit more detailed. For example, if you follow the rising and falling, let's say you can follow the rising and falling. Now you can follow it good. Now follow it with a bit more precision. For example, whether it's going long, slow, or fast, or whether it's tight. Sometimes it's like something like it's pressing inside there. You feel the sensation. You feel the different sensation. You feel the different movements that is occurring at that moment of time. And then that means it's not just only on the superficial side, but right now it's more alert and more aware of what is going on at that moment of time. So mindfulness needs that. It needs that more effort type of noticing. Not just sit there and just relax, feel good. And or sometimes you may notice the pain. The pain arises strong, powerful. So too the same thing. When the pain arises, we have to pay attention to the pain. Feel the sensation, feel the pain, feel what is going on with the pain. Then it is not superficial anymore. Then mindfulness comes in together with the pain. Because sometimes nowadays, and unfortunately, every now and then I hear yogis, they said that when it comes to the pain, just relax with the pain. Just feel good, just at ease with the pain. And just let the pain be there. And that's about it. That's not the way of Vipassana. Vipassana, you have to pay attention to it more thoroughly, more precisely, more detailed in what is going on with the pain. So mindfulness needs that. Nowadays also, as I said, did I mention yesterday? No. Now nowadays also, people like to do this type of mindfulness practice or vipassana practice in the sense of like, they sit down with a coffee with a mug, and then they sit down on the garden, and then the birds fly through. Oh, beautiful bird. Then they sip coffee. Oh, they call it meditation right now. I mean, it's relaxing for a lot of people, which is good for them, But this is not Buddhist meditation. This is not Buddhist meditation, but this one is popular right now and again. I mean, this is good for some people. Perhaps they may have some certain mental health issues that perhaps they need this way of overcoming or their mental problem or their heart problem. Perhaps it's good for them in that way. But this is not Buddhist meditation. This is not Buddhist meditation. Buddhist meditation, usually you need to go through a bit more suffering. Without suffering, then there's nothing gained. Because part of the suffering is an object for vipassana, and you cannot run away from it. If you don't want to see the truth, if you don't want to see all these phenomena of unpleasant phenomena, and you just only want to see what is pleasant, then the mind doesn't want to make effort. It just want to relax there. It's only when the suffering comes in, then the mind sees it. If the mind has the urgency, has the right way, right idea, right understanding, then when you treat the object, then you treat it with more precisely, you're treating it with more mindfulness, and so on. Yeah. So, therefore, you need to put an effort into it. Yeah. So, mindfulness is not something superficial. Superficial, again, also another one which is on the walking meditation. In the walking meditation, nowadays, again, I've seen a lot of yogis from other places when they come to me and then they tell me how they do their walking meditation in the past. The walking meditation is just only as if like one phase only. Right step, left step, right step, left step. Throughout their whole retreat. Retreat after retreat, retreat after retreat. Then there's no such thing as going slow. Running, yes, but not going slow. Yeah, they don't go slow. They just walk. And normally, when you do that, that means the mind is not going to be thorough. It's not going to be detailed. The mindfulness is not going to develop from that walking. You call it walking meditation. It's only label, but you are not actually doing the proper walking meditation. You are not paying attention. You are not being detailed of your sensation and your movement. So in vipassana meditation, you need to be that detailed. So this is something that I always emphasize. If you want to progress, you have to pay attention to your object carefully, whether it's walking, sitting, or even in the daily activities, as much as you can. Now, this mindfulness also, when it arises, when it becomes strong, it also helps to what we call guarding the senses. Yeah. Because you see, when you come into Buddhism, if you learn Buddhism, if you learn the text, you find that many times the Buddha used the word guarding the senses. Guards the sense. Guards the senses means the 5 external senses. And also, of course, the 6th one is the mental, the mind door. Yeah? So you have to guard all these, the sense doors. So what does it mean when the mindfulness arises, it guards the sense door? Now here, when you are doing, again, let's say when you are doing walking meditation, and when your mind has calmed down, and you do the lifting, pushing, dropping during that time, you pay attention to what is going on. Now during that time, also you will notice that sound from the outside or people around you, it doesn't really disturb you that much when the mind is concentrated and mindful during that moment of time. You're kind of aware of what is going on. In the sitting, when the mindfulness has not come to a certain level, then you'll be bombarded by the sound, by senses, by so on, and you cannot at ease. But when the mind becomes powerful, the continuity of mindfulness is there. Then that time when you sit down, and let's say there's lightning and thunder outside, and it comes in suddenly, very loud. the mind is aware, not that it doesn't aware, it is aware of it, but it's not affected by it. There's no fear, there's no it disturb the whole meditation. Yeah? The mind is steady. Yeah. Yeah. So too, like when you are sitting, there are sound, or when you are walking, there are beautiful sights around you, and the mind or the eyes are not attracted to all these things. The mind just stays with the walking. Yeah. Now, while we are here in this hall, when you are doing this walking meditation in the hall, in a way, we are more or less, we cut off the external scenery of the outside already. Yeah? When we are in the hall or in a corridor. But in some other places, when you do walking meditation, you are doing walking meditation in the outdoor. You are doing walking meditation outdoor. And sometimes the outdoor means like a garden. And there are flowers and there are beautiful trees and the mountains and so on. It's beautiful. And here you got to look at 6 feet in front of you. Yeah. So how does a yogi, begins to have that concentration, have that mindfulness, and not get distracted by all the scenery? Because if you are not mindful, if you are not focused in your practice, then you'll be looking everything except inside yourself. That's why in the beginning part, usually I don't advise yogis to walk outside. You will not do meditation. But when you are more advanced, then once in a while, it's not a problem. Yeah? So it has that guarding effect. So tomorrow, you try and see. If you were to do this walking meditation and you're focused and you're thorough, you check yourself. You see, sounds and sight doesn't affect you that much. Or even sometimes also, if you can catch your thoughts, that you don't fall into the story of your thinking or planning. You say, oh, coming, then you're kind of aware of it. Oh, it stopped. Which is good, actually. Yeah, which is wonderful. This is the effect of mindfulness. It guards the door. It guards the senses. You know that they are there, not that you do not know, but you are not affected by all these phenomena. Yeah? So what else? Now when it comes to this mindfulness, it also has another word of acceptance. Acceptance here. Acceptance means, in the Vipassana sense, that means it accepts whether it is wholesome or unwholesome. It accepts whether it's good or bad. It accepts whether it's painful or pleasant. It accepts whatever that is being presented to the mind. For example, when we are meditating, sometimes when you sit there, and then there are terrible thoughts arises, perhaps from the past, and then those thoughts comes up, and then it makes you sad or fearful, and the tears starts coming down. And for a lot of time, for a lot of yogis or a lot of people, if they are not mindful, then all what they want to do is to suppress these thoughts. They don't want to see it anymore. They thought that it's already 30 or 40 years gone in the past. But why during in the meditation all these things keep popping up? Yeah. Now, mindfulness here is whenever this type of thoughts arises, although it arises, but the mindfulness stays with it. It's aware of it. It accepts it. But it's not affected by the mind is not affected by it. Even that thoughts are there. And the unwholesome thoughts or the terrible thoughts are there. If the mind is not trained, for most people, when the mind is not trained, whenever that particular thoughts arises, the mind will go into that particular way. Go into sadness, or going into anger, ill will, jealousy, and so on. Yeah. So right now is that when the mindfulness is there, this thing arises, the mindfulness aware of them. And when it's aware of them, therefore in the future, this thing will start to weaken. The thoughts will start to weaken. Not that you will forget, but you will change how you deal with the mind, or how you deal with the thoughts. Instead of it comes in with sadness, next time it comes in with equanimity. It comes in with stability. The thought arises, but no more sadness. The thought arises, but no more anger. The thought arises, but no more jealousy. Yeah? So it takes a lot of training for the mind to change from the way that we used to be until it changed to really the mindfulness can just be with it. So that is what we mean by acceptance. Acceptance will come in many forms. Sometimes your patience. For example, your thinking. You sit there, you thought that you're free from all your sleepiness. Wow, wonderful. You sit there for the sitting. You're not sleepy, you're quite alert, wonderful. But then after that, you're bombarded by a lot of thinking. A lot of thinking starts coming in. Then what do? Because during that time, if the mindfulness is not powerful enough, then there'll be a lot of thinking. But the mindfulness is powerful enough. Thinking will still come in, but it comes in less. But when it comes in, the mind is not affected. The mind doesn't go into the story. Whatever thoughts that arises, it's just aware of it. Then it passes through. The thought just passes through, one after another. Sometimes a lot of random thoughts, a lot of nonsensical thoughts just come in and just pass through. And the mind is not affected by it. Yeah? So, which is good. The mindfulness can stay with it. It can accept it as they are. Yeah? Sometimes the pain. You have a lot of pain. Sometimes we see yogis day after day when they do this vipassana meditation. There's a lot of unpleasant feelings arises in the body. Different parts, pain arises, and you have to sit there. You have to learn to accept the pain. You have to learn to accept the pain and to see the pain as they really are. So, the mind doesn't suppress the pain, does not push the pain away, but it accepts them. It does not welcome it also. It does not push it away, but it comes in, it takes it as it is. That is a form of acceptance. There are many, many ways. And throughout the Dhamma, throughout the other talks also, you'll see that how the mind sometimes is reluctant to notice certain objects. Things like painful sensation, things like terrible memories of the past. Yeah. But on the other hand, when it's pleasant objects, pleasant memories, pleasant sensation, then if you are not careful, the mind grabs into it. It craves for it. It wants it. So acceptance also means that, yes, it's a pleasant thought arises. Yes, it's a pleasant sensation is there. But the mind right now is that it's aware of it, but it does not crave upon all these things. It disappears, we don't wish it to come back, or we don't want it or whether we want or don't want it to stay, we just let it go. Let it go. Yeah. If it comes back again, it becomes clear to you, then you pay attention to it. And it disappears, we let it go. So the acceptance also in that way too. So there are many things, many things that we can talk about this acceptance. Now, mindfulness is not only just recognize mindfulness in various forms. Even right now, I have not touched everything on mindfulness. Now, there are so many different levels as you progress. If I were to tell you right now, then it's going to be a lot of theoretical understanding on it, a lot of theoretical work on it. Because there will be times in the future we talk about the balancing state of mind, how the mindfulness helps to balance the different mental factors so that your noting mind can work. That is also another area of more deeper advanced form of mindfulness. There are also deeper advanced form of mindfulness when the mindfulness becomes so powerful that the whole hour you sit is hardly any thinking, hardly any sleepiness. From the moment you start sitting until the bell rings, is completely alert, completely mindful, as if like the whole mind at a tip-top condition. Any thoughts that's coming in, the mind already know. Any sleepiness as a background, the mindfulness already aware of it. Nothing when that time when the mind is so powerful, you're aware of everything but not affected by anything. Yeah. That is how powerful the mindfulness can grow. So, but that one, you need more practice. Much more practice. One retreat is not going to cut it, Don't go back, you think one retreat, it's going to be a super meditator. No. First retreat is only getting the technique right. Usually for most people, just to get the technique, how to walk, how to sit, how to eat, how to open the door mindfully, and so on. And to repetition until the mind creates into a good habit. Until the mindfulness is so powerful that sometimes you are not mindful, the mindfulness will automatically kick in, as if I've restart the whole mind again. Right now is that when you are not mindful, it will just go on not mindful. It will just go on and on. You go into thinking, go into planning, go into sleepiness. But when you get more powerful, sometimes it goes into sleepiness, but suddenly the whole mind cut it off, that sleepiness. Suddenly the whole mind cut off in the middle of the thinking. You just cut it off. Because of the habit of mindfulness has been developed over time. Right now, not yet. Right now, you need a lot more effort to put into your being present, being aware, being what is going on in the present with a more heightened state of awareness. So the next thing, last but not least, the next thing I want to talk about is the condition for the mindfulness to arise. Not just only you must be aware of what is mindfulness when it's there or not there. So you also must know that how this mindfulness and what way that mindfulness arises. Mindfulness arises, the condition is simple. It needs a clear or a prominent object. It needs a clear or prominent object. If an object is clear, that means your attention can hold on to it, mindfulness arises. If the object is very vague or very thin or not that clear or very foggy, misty, then that mindfulness will not come in if you take up those objects. What does it mean over here? Say when you are walking, doing your walking meditation, you do this lifting, pushing, dropping. Sensations are clear at the soles, at the movement. Then you pay attention onto it. Mindfulness arises. Your other parts of your body also, there may be some small sensation here and there. Yeah? But if you were to bring your attention and pay attention to that area, the mindfulness is not going to come in very much. Yeah? So the mind has to choose where are the most clearest sensation. So during the walking, usually the movements, they are the clearest. So then we follow the movement. Therefore, when you follow a clear object or objects, then mindfulness come in. So too in the sitting meditation, also the same thing. You pay attention to the rising and falling. And let's say if the rising falling is clear right now, you pay attention to it. You feel the movement of rising, falling, you label it, you feel the sensation, you feel the long, short, and then mindfulness comes in. Now, if, let's say after you meditate for 5, or you notice the rising, falling for 5 minutes or so, then the mindfulness, the rising, falling starts to fade, become not so clear, and it's taper off. At that time, you got to look for another object which is clear. Then perhaps you look for the sitting and touching. Your hands are touching, or yesterday I mentioned you're touching. Then you notice touching. You feel the sensation. Forget about the rising and falling. Feel the sensation of the touch, whether you're putting palms on top of each other or on your thighs. So try notice them. Notice the buttock touching the cushion. Notice as sitting, and then you go to and fro if they are clear to you. If let's say you were to sit there, and then after that, if the rising and falling becomes clear again, then you come back to the rising and falling. Or while you're during this rising and falling, you notice this rising and falling. They are clear to you. But let's say there's an itchiness arises and it's clearer than your rising and falling. Then you have to take up the more prominent object at that moment of time. That means the itchiness becomes the most prominent one, then you take note of that itchiness. Pay attention to the itchiness, what is going on over there. Or, let's say, pain arises, sensation of other parts where pain arises. It becomes strong. Then this time, pay attention to it. Bring your attention, notice the pain, how it's going on with the pain. Or sometimes, on another time, the pain may not be that prominent. It's at the background. You know it's there, you know it's already there, but it doesn't affect, for example, the noticing of the rising and falling. You can notice the rising and falling, they are still clear, but the pain is there, not that clear. You know it's there, but that time you just carry on with the rising and falling. But after a while, perhaps the pain starts to become more intense, it's become clearer, then you drop the rising and falling. And then if the pain decreases again, it goes back in the background, then it goes back to the whatever that is prominent during that time, or rising, falling. If it's prominent, then we pay attention to it. So this is what we meant by dominant object. Sometimes as you grow further into the further development, a prominent object or a dominant object right now, it may last just about a few seconds. few seconds on that particular object, then another object only lasts few seconds, another object lasts few seconds, but it's a continuous, you know. It changed from one object to another object to another object to another object in a faster manner. Not like in the beginning part that you notice rising, falling for a while, and then after that another object, and then another object, and then after that another one. So sometimes in the further development, the predominancy of the objects are different compared to the beginning part of it. Or sometimes, once in a while, you may feel that 2 or 3 objects are equally prominent. For example, you sit there, then there are 2 or 3 types of pain coming together. You know, like knee, one pain, the calf, another pain, ankle, another pain. 3 different types of pain, but they are equally catching your attention. So what do? You catch them all. You take them all. Don't worry about choosing one first. You catch them all because they are being presented to you in that way. Take note of them in that way. Perhaps in a short while, maybe one pain becomes more prominent than the other 2. Then you pay attention to that particular pain. But sometimes the pain, you notice them, it diminish again, then the next one comes up again, and then you got to shift the attention to the next pain. This is how we do Vipassana meditation in terms of arousing of that mindfulness and also in terms of that progress. So take note of this mindfulness, because this mindfulness, again, this topic of mindfulness, we're going to repeat this again and again and again and again and again. If we have a 2 weeks retreat, I'm going to talk the same thing in a different manner, but very much to do with mindfulness. If you're going to have a retreat 1 year here, it's also the same thing, but again in a different manner. But everything is connected with this mindfulness. Without mindfulness, this whole Vipassana is something wrong. So if you have mindfulness, at least there's potential for it to develop further. All right. So we stop here for tonight, and we'll continue this talk on tomorrow night. But tomorrow night, what we'll do is that I think it's better to start at 8:20 rather than 8:15. Usually over the years, we notice that yogis, when 8:15, sometimes just to go to the toilet and go to the restroom and come back again, it's quite a while. 5 more minutes. I'll come in at 8:20. Tomorrow there will not be any interviews yet, but 1 more day to try it out. Then tomorrow is Sunday. On Monday, I'll start interview a number of you. Okay. The list also will be. I'll print out 1 in the male side and also 1 in the female side. And also today, I also printed out the guidelines to interview on the female side and also on the male side. I got no place to hang, so it's on the table. So read on it. Okay. So all right, we share merits now.